Hey guys, welcome to another episode of TLG Vlogs. And today I have the pleasure of sitting down with Claudia Rosing, and we are going to talk social media. We are going to talk about having a specific market, growing a brand, right? The importance of all of this. We're going to hear a little bit about your story and how I met you, and how I did meet you was through social media, right? Like, I watched that really amazing video that you did. Somebody on my team shared it with me. They're like, you have to do a video with this girl. She's incredible. I watch your channel, love your content. I think you're doing an amazing job. And yeah, I want you to share a little bit about your importance of social media and really how it's helped grow your brand.
Yeah, I would say social media has definitely helped elevate my business and take it to a whole different level. It's given me an opportunity and a platform to reach people that I would never have reached. It's definitely created a brand awareness, and it's really put my name out there, and it's been a great way for me to kind of stay top of mind to potential new clients, old clients, stay connected with old and new clients. It's been a great way to build credibility. It's been a great way to showcase listings, get exposure for sellers. I think it's done so much for my business, and it's really helped take my business to the next level.
Definitely. I mean, so when you started in real estate, so I guess why don't you share with everybody who doesn't know you, right? Like, so your main market is Secaucus.
Yep.
And really, how did you start there? Like when for social media, because when we had our initial conversation, for you was so big and like, becoming present there. Like, did you ever do something like a campaign or something like early on that like really worked for you?
Yeah, so when I first started in the business, I was relatively young for the business. I was 22, and I saw that a lot of these older agents who've been dominating that market in Secaucus for 20, 30 years, they had signs everywhere. And I was like, how do I become that, right? Like, my face should be there. So I was looking into what they were doing, and to be frank, nothing. They were really just using their name for 20 years. I think kind of getting a little comfortable and taking photos on phones, like things that just are the bare minimum and really should not be used for a $900,000 listing, right? Yep. So I firstly thought about what I can do to make myself stand out, and one thing I realized was these agents were not utilizing digital marketing properly, social media, and I thought that's where me, like a little bit more of a younger perspective, newer to the industry, could really maybe bring a new perspective to that market. And that's exactly what I did. So I decided to shoot this like video that was a tour on the town of Secaucus, which is where I'm from. And I specifically chose Secaucus because I lived there. I thought it was convenient. This video like blew up. I put it on Instagram, Facebook. I shared it on local community Facebook groups. I tagged the mayor.
Did you get like a listing or anything from it?
Oh my God, so many.
Really?
Yeah, I tagged the mayor. It got thousands, tens and thousands of views, hundreds of comments. And it's like such a small town, so I'll never forget, like the next day I walked into the town hall to go like drop off a CO application, and like 5 or 6 people approached me and they were like, oh my God, that video was so amazing. You really highlighted the town of Secaucus, right? Like, people have pride in where they live, and it makes them feel good when you're somebody who's like a representative of that area and you're really showcasing the town in which they're so prideful of. So I was like, oh my God, I'm onto something.
Yeah, I'm a celebrity.
Wow, like, yeah, I literally felt like a little bit of a celebrity. And I was like, okay, this works. I'm reaching people. Yep. And sure enough, I started getting calls, and I think like now it's so interesting because I'll go on a listing appointment and a lot of sellers will say like, oh, I can't wait to see the video that you're making for me on this house. We see all your videos.
They have an expectation.
Yeah, and like it excites them, and that makes me feel good because, and then they'll text me like, okay, when is the video almost ready? Like, and then I'll send it to them first for their approval and everything, and I'll be, do you want to pick a song, and like it's fun.
Well, so you involve them even?
Yeah, of course, I involve them in the whole process. Like any songs you have in mind.
I got to talk to my video guy about that. That's interesting.
No, it just makes them feel like excited about it, right? Yep. And so I that like really makes me feel good because it makes me feel like I'm doing something good. Now,
the quality of the video at that time, was that like, did you hire somebody for that, or was it more like on the phone, or what was the?
Definitely, yeah. I hired like a full-blown like production company, and I was spending a lot more money at the time than I was comfortable spending.
So you went all out on this video.
All out. All out. I mean,
Okay.
it was like an all-day thing. We shot in like 6, 7 different locations, at the train station, at the schools, at the swim club, everywhere.
And how early, was this like brand new in the business? How long were you in the business?
Brand new. Like, I don't even think I had a listing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So
yeah.
you took
But
a
here
risk.
I was like marketing myself as the
Yep.
expert, right? And
Yep.
you could believe I was, because I knew everything about the town, right? I was talking about the town, the schools. I was showing people around everywhere. We had drone, aerials, videos, everything, right?
You did it right.
And yeah, I think I really was able to market myself as the expert. And yeah, that really took it off for me.
That's so funny you say that. So like when I was started in real estate, like I've always found like an attraction to like high-end real estate. Like I loved like nice houses, and I didn't come from a family of real estate, or the company I was with when I first started in real estate wasn't like in alignment with high-end. So what I did was I actually borrowed my friend's house. I borrowed my other friend's dad. I borrowed my other friend's mom.
I love that.
And I did like a fake tour through this house, like really just to create this thing. I even at the time used my mortgage lender sat in our conference room, and I made this whole video. But it's funny you say that, because I mean, yeah, I had the same thing, like the production company, but I look back at the quality of that.
Oh my God.
Because I'm a little bit older than you, but this video is now had to be 6 years ago when I first started, even 5 years ago.
But at the time it worked,
It
right?
worked. But the crazy part is, like years later, like I had it on the bottom of my email signature. I would go to like the other like company conferences and things, and people would always be like, "Oh, I remember you from that video."
Yeah.
And it was just so crazy that like this like silly video that you just like kind of like put the dots together and do, and like it really gets that kind of exposure, and it really kind of like makes you who you are. And I think that's like the biggest thing is like with social media, and I'm sure you'll chime in on this too, is like it's a blank slate. Where like I always tell people, it's like, oh, how do I sell here? How do I do this? Like social media is like your own novel.
Yeah.
Like you can be whoever you want. And I think people have a disconnect there. It's like you have the opportunity, whether it's with resources of friends or family or whatever, to write your own scripts, right? You could be the Sea Caucus expert today, or tomorrow you could be like the luxury real estate expert, and you have that opportunity. And I think that's the biggest thing about social media is there is no limitations and there's no right or wrong. It's like you are who you want to be.
Yeah.
Right. So that's like so interesting. All right. So I have a question for you. So okay, so you would say that was probably what your most unique.
That was the catalyst.
That was a catalyst.
Into like
yeah.
the whole Sea Caucus domination.
Yeah.
You know.
Now, have you ever made a video that helped? Not like a video of the house. Has a video ever helped you actually sell the house? Meaning like
100%.
you found a buyer from social media for a house.
Yeah. Yeah.
Share that.
Well, actually, that promise video that I made, I had a buyer reach out.
The video I found you on?
Yeah, yeah. I had a buyer reach out and like wanted to go look at a few like 1.7, $2 million houses.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah.
That's great.
But I mean, there's been so many instances. If anything, I just think like that video in Sea Caucus in particular really just put me as top of mind. Yep. And like, I think people are always looking for like innovative ways to, or like how agents are innovative in their market, and like I think that was something different. And it was something I leveraged, right? Like I would be like, oh my god, like look, this video I made, it had tens of thousands of views. I can do the same for you. Exposure is everything, marketing. And like even now when I go on listing appointments, you know, now that I've had a few like viral videos, and you only need a few, you know, I'll leverage that. I'll say, listen, I get 1 million views on this video. Who's to say I can't do the same for your house? Okay, it would stress me out if I had it like structured and planned, and I think it needs to be that way. Like it needs to feel organic, because I think if you force content out that seems forced, it can, you know, your audience will tell. So obviously every property that I get, no matter what price point, and I'm a firm believer in this, how you do anything is how you do everything. So whatever the price point it may be, it might be silly, but if it's a $400,000 house or a $2 million house, like I tell all my sellers, I treat it equally. So I'll do a video for you. I will stand in front of a $400,000 house and act like it is the most glamorous, perfect, amazing, spectacular $400,000 house on social media, because that's what a seller deserves.
And the buyers.
Yeah.
So like pivoting off consistency, right, which everyone knows is like really important. But if you're a brand new agent, right, I feel like there's a lot of agents, maybe if even you could be in the business for a while, you don't have to be brand new, or you're struggling, or you're looking just to grow your business in general, right? Like something that I live by, and I know you do as well, and you know, big reason we're doing this is like identifying where you want to work, especially early on, right? Like really hyper focusing on a certain market. And I'll let you talk about that with, you know, your intentions and how you grew Sea Caucus. But like for me, I think it's even more granular in a lot of ways to say like, understanding how much production's happening in a market, understanding who your top competitors are in a market, analyzing what they're doing, and like what market share is up for grabs.
Yeah.
Right. So I guess talk a little bit about that, because I know you're like born and raised in Secaucus and you do so much in Secaucus. So like, tell us that story a little bit.
Yeah, when I started seeing the ones that were the, ones dominating that specific market and having a lot of the market share, and I saw all their signs, I was like, I need to do that. I want to do that. So first thing I did was become an expert. Like, I think a lot of people want to call themselves the expert, and I can sell here, but they're not really the experts. So like, to me, that was studying maps, understanding every single street and block and house. I went back 5 years on the MLS of every single house that sold in Secaucus, to the point so that like, if I talked to somebody, I could reference a sale in 5 years ago and know the square footage and know the average price per square footage of a condo that sold in this building and that, right? Like, that is becoming an expert. So I would say that's first, right? Actually become an expert once you hone in on a market that you really want to be in and dominate. And then after that, you have to be consistent. Marketing, are you sending mail? And if you are you doing that every month, right? You can't just do it one time. Are you doing it consistently? Are you on social media? If you want to focus on a specific area, you should make videos about the area, right? So you can connect with local buyers and sellers. So, I mean, I guess that would be like my top tips.
You said, that's really odd that you said that, and because that was a big thing for me too. It's that over understanding your market, like becoming like obsessively like understanding of something. And when I did that for Paramus specifically, right, like I understood who built what house, how much it sold for, why it sold for that, or what was the good streets in town. And I think that's what the consumer appreciates, right? So it's like one thing to find somebody, right? Like, you can make really good video content, like, wow, I noticed this person, they're doing a lot of business, but then actually when it's showtime and you meet somebody, like, how much do you really know? So it's a full circle. It's not just like a one piece of the pie. It's like, you could be really good at making videos or very charismatic on camera, but like when the consumer meets you on the buying or seller side, like, how much do you know that market? And I think that's interesting that you like right away attacked all fronts, right? It's like, let me understand the market where I want to. So you identified it, right? Like, okay, Secaucus is where I want to work. Then it's like, now that I know I want to work here, this is everything I need to know about the town. And now how do I attract, buyers and sellers to use me, right? So you did like the full circle.
Yeah, like you said, anybody can become a realtor. The barrier to entry is so low. There's so many realtors. Everybody knows a realtor, right? But there's something about somebody that has knowledge and is confident. And I think confidence is so important. Like, that's everything. Even when you're a new agent, you've never sold a house. If you're confident and you act like you know everything about the area, I bet you a seller will take a chance on you. And that's what happened to me on my first listing in Secaucus. And I always told myself, once I get my first listing, that's it, I'm going to be good. And I'll never forget, my first listing was an expired listing. It was an $850,000 two-family in Secaucus, and the listing had expired from an agent that was in the business a long time, dominating that area. And I begged this seller to give me a chance. He obviously knew that I was very knowledgeable, and he did. And I sold the house in a week, and she couldn't sell it for 9 months.
Wow.
And I mean, that's a perfect example.
That's a very, very good example. No, I think like for me too, like I go back on this a lot. It's like, where's the real estate industry like heading, right? And I feel like more so than ever, like it's just like it's growing so exponentially in the sense of like real estate has so many like big shows now, and there's so many so much attention on these big houses. And I think as an agent, and as you mentioned, like being like confident, like really owning social media and really like owning who you want to be, as we kind of like talked about earlier, is like so critical. Because yeah, you're right. Like people are taking a risk on you, right? And a lot of times we're taking a risk on them too, right? Like, of course there's like data behind what we're doing, or like we're pricing a home for a certain thing, but there's a lot of unique properties that we're all holding our breath, right? Like the seller doesn't know if we're going to get it. We don't know if we're going to get it. We don't know what the market's going to yield. So like being there and being confident, but also at the same time offering like that out of the box stuff, I think makes like the world of a difference, because especially that's what people are looking for now.
So going off the topic of picking a specific market and dominating that, your team is number one in Paramus and in Bergen County. So can you tell us a little bit more about kind of how that journey started and what you did to get to where you are?
Yeah, no, obviously it's, there's a lot of like elements that go into it. I think, interestingly enough, you and I share a lot of like the same ideals, right? Like even from the smallest, like, macro level to say like we treat all listings the same. Like that was a really big thing for me because, I wanted to make sure whoever the customer was, whatever I was focusing on, that they understood they were getting me at 110%. And being like really, really knowledgeable, something that I preach to my team. I think really like social media for me, it's just like the full round circle because it leads to everything else, right? Like we're really big on Google, we're really big on like SEO optimization, but like the more mature I get in my career, the more I've noticed is the more specific you are on what you want, right? You go watch videos of me from 4 years ago. I was talking 4 or 5 years ago about wanting to be the number one team in Bergen County. I would say it actively in videos. Like I look back sometimes, I'm like, wow, that's funny. Like I actually said that. But if you're very, very hyper specific on what you want, then everything else really starts to fall in place. And I think social media for a lot of people is that storyboard, right? It's your journey, it's everything, it's your life. And like, we get a lot of the time like, oh, should I have a business page? Should I have a personal page? Or like, you're not posting enough, you're not doing this. But at the end of the day, it's you, right? It's what you want to share. It's what you want people to think of you. And I think in any capacity, consistency is big. So I think for me, with like having a team and like recruiting agents and getting a lot of high-end listings, yeah, social media was huge, right? Like, because you're writing that novel for the world to see. It's like, Taylor's that guy in Paramus, or Taylor's that guy in Bergen County, or Taylor has that young dynamic team, right? Like you're using social media as your like virtual billboard, right? And I laugh about this sometimes because besides the cost of maybe like getting a videographer or a photographer, social media is free.
Yeah.
It's
really
crazy. Like I've spoken on a lot of panels, and sometimes I'm like sensitive to like who's in the audience because I feel like you can give some like really high level stuff too. I'm sure like when people ask you like, well, how do you make videos? It's like, well, what do you mean? How do you make videos? You just feel like it's natural for you. But I think about this sometimes, and it's like, I tell people, it's like, be like whatever you want, like whatever you're trying to do, you can be. Like if that's, you want to be a luxury expert, make a website that represents luxury. Yeah. If you want to, share properties on social media that like embody everything about that. And I think that's something that I owned. Like I own the fact that I really knew Paramus early on. That was my feeder market. I wasn't from Paramus. I didn't live in Paramus. My first office just happened to be here. Now I live here, ironically, and we do so much here, and I really have embodied, the community and embodied like a lot about it. But like you said, like I just use social media in a lot of ways to like catapult that and really just like make myself relevant. I think that's a big thing.
Yeah, you spoke about the virtual billboard, and like that is so true. And like we had talked about before, like you can do whatever you want with it, and what you put out is kind of what you attract. Yep. So yeah, I totally agree with that. So if you want to pick a specific market, put out that kind of content, put out what you want to attract, and it'll come back to you.
Yeah. And I think you do a really, really good job at this because I see that all your videos in some capacity are very consistent. I see a lot of people like, I don't want to say like copy. That's not the right word because I feel like the whole world's copying, right? At a certain capacity.
Well, people always want to follow the leader, right?
Yeah, and we're all like getting into, because
we get inspired from each other too.
Inspired is the word. Yeah. Like we all find inspiration from things, right? So I hear when people say like, "Oh, this person copied my video." I'm like, "Oh, really? I don't know." Like it's more like you inspired me to do my own version of it.
Yeah.
But in short, I think don't try to do something you're not. Like I see like there's people on my team that are like way funnier than others. Like, if you're not really, really funny, don't go make funny videos. You know, like that's not you. Like be at a certain capacity, be yourself, even if it's working for somebody else. Like, what works for you might not work for me. What works for me might not work for you. You could find inspiration. You could say, oh, I like how Taylor does those video cuts, or I like that they're, showcasing the house in a certain way, but be yourself. And I think you do actually a phenomenal job at that. Like I see a lot of consistency where I see other agents, they'll like kind of like just drop like little weird like trending things, but it's not them, and you can kind of like see that. Yeah,
it's not organic, and you can see it right away.
Yeah.
And I think that's really important, like having like a style and something that you feel is kind of on brand with you, and being consistent with that. Because I think people start having expectations, even now with like clients, they have certain expectations with videos when you get their house on the market and stuff, and like you want to make sure that you're consistent with that and it's on brand with who you are.
Yep. I think the last thing I would say to wrap this up would be, so and I think of this with all marketing, right? Like there's certain marketing that you do just to have yourself out there, right? And you have to like own that going into that marketing. And then there's other things that you do with the purpose, right? You do it because you're hoping that's going to procure business. So this might be a little bit of a tricky question, but when you make content, do you feel as if it's just like universal branding, that it's like, all right, if somebody contacts this off me, great, or do you try to do certain things that are very specific that you know are to like generate leads?
By content, do you mean like social media?
Social media, yeah.
That's a good question. Ask the question again.
All right, so let's say, for example, like let's say that's a call to action. Like, do you ever make content that's like, I see a lot of agents do this. They'll make like sponsored ads. Well, they'll say like, do you know what your home's worth or something like that? And like the idea of the video is to drive traffic. And then there's other people, I feel like you're maybe in the same category as me. It's like you make content that's more just like universal. Like you're showcasing something, whether it's yourself, whether it's a property, and then organically through that, somebody like might reach out to you.
Yeah.
Do you believe more in that approach, or do you believe more in just like a direct approach?
I see. Okay, so I mean, obviously, like there's the go-to content video creation of like the listings, right?
Yep.
Because you get a listing, you want to make sure you market it, you want to get exposure for your client. So those are videos I'll always do. In terms of like other kind of content, I think like what you do is really cool, like the educational side.
Yep.
That's something I don't really do as much, but I probably should start. Educating your audience, I think that's really important. But more than anything, I think people like visually enticing like content. So something that's, catchy, like a trending song, something that's like visually appealing to the eye, a beautiful home. So like for me, that listing and promise, it wasn't even mine, but like I asked the agent, I said, do you mind if I film something? And I asked the builder.
Genius, yeah.
And I think like that's something people forget. Like you don't need to have the listing to be able to create the content. Like if you want to create it, go ask an agent at your office. I'm sure they wouldn't mind that you'd get more exposure for them anyways, right?
Yeah.
Think creative out and outside the box.
But if the customer saw that, they would never know that wasn't your listing. They just see you in front of the house.
100%. So many people commented like, great listing. I'm just like, don't answer.
It's not really mine, but I made it sure.
I gave credit to the listing agent in the description, which
Definitely.
you should always do.
Yeah. Disclaimer here.
Yeah, but I'll just leave it at that.
Yeah. No, I think, I guess I'll leave it this way. My final thoughts, like, I'm sure you're on YouTube quite a bit. There's a guy, Mr. Beast, he's like the most followed YouTube guy. I think everyone knows him. And I watched this like whole segment on him, and he talks about, he actually, I guess people don't even realize, he has so many different channels, right? And each channel has its own purpose. And I think you have to know, whatever you're creating, like you said, like the educational element of it, like when I create content like that, I know it's geared towards agents, and I know that's geared towards maybe people that are just coming to, viewership for our page. And then there's other things that we create, to your point, is to attract sellers, right? Or to promote a listing. It's like, be open-minded to all of that, and just like know when you're, I think the big thing is like as social media continues to get bigger and bigger, it's like owning your audience, owning yourself, like what you want to create. And just like when you're creating content, like, don't necessarily always think it comes with a purpose. And that's what I was getting at before. It's like, I have a lot of agents like, oh, why do I want to do social media if it doesn't like lead to somebody like a listing or something? Like, how do you know it's worth my time? And it's like, the worth my time approach, you really don't know. You have to just know that you're creating it with a purpose for what that is, and then whatever comes of that. And I think that's falls into consistency, right? It's like owning that and understanding that, and not every video you're gonna make is gonna trend or go crazy, or not every time you put all this time and energy into making this crazy video for a listing that it's definitely going to sell, but you're doing everything you can, and you're putting 110% in all the content that you're creating, and you're doing it with a purpose.
Definitely. I mean, consistency is, that helps the algorithm, right? Like, and that's all we're all trying to figure out, the algorithm.
All trying to understand the algorithm.
And honestly, like sometimes it is just random. Like random videos will go viral, and sometimes you don't know which one it's going to be, and you got to just be consistent. And like you said, going back to the virtual billboard, we live in a day and age where like 99% of your sellers are going to be looking you up now, right? Like after you leave a listing appointment or any client, a buyer consultation, they're going to look up Taylor Lucyk on Google. And one of the first things that are going to come up is probably your website and then your social media, right? And they're going to click on it, and they're going to see that you're posting consistent content. Oh, look, he's doing this, he's doing that. You're building credibility. Like he's selling a lot of houses. He's putting out a lot of content. Oh, wow, this is what he could do for me. and it creates a good overall brand awareness.
Makes you credible.
Yeah, it makes you credible.
People want to understand they're making the right decision. They're hiring somebody they feel is comfortable. And like, even off Google, like you just said, I know this gets off topic, but it's like something as simple as Google reviews.
Yeah.
Just get like 10, 15 of your friends or family to say that you do a really good job. Like that's something so basic, but you know what? If the consumer sees it, it makes them feel good. It makes them feel like, wow, like other people also support this person. Other people also support that they made a good decision by hiring this person. So I think that's...
We do the same thing, like when we go to look for any kind of product or service, like the first thing we're doing is Google or Instagram, right?
Definitely. Well, this was fun.
Yes, thank you.
I appreciate you having some time to come out and hang out with us today and talk about social media. And I look forward to keep watching your journey and growing. You're doing amazing. And hopefully we can do a deal soon and maybe some more videos. But,
thank you. I had a blast.
Thank you. Well, guys, thank you for tuning in to another episode of TLG Vlogs. If you like this content and you like our channel, hit the like button, hit the subscribe button. We'll see you guys next week.